Hi, my name's Lila. I came back from 8 months in Florida caring for my dying grandmother, only to find my room gone, my name erased, and my stuff left in the rain like garbage. But that wasn't the worst part. What hurts more is what they took behind my back. My trust, my story, and $350,000 that wasn't theirs to spend. Why would a family do that to one of their own? Before we dive in, tell me, what time are you listening to this and where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I really want to know. I didn't say a word. I rolled my suitcase back down the porch steps like I was some awkward guest who'd shown up at the wrong house. Except this was my house, or it had been for most of my 28 years. I didn't cry. I didn't knock again. I didn't want to give anyone inside the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. My heart wasn't broken. Not yet. It was something else. Something icier, like the realization that a part of your life has been quietly wiped away. And no one bothered to mention it. I sat on the front steps for a few minutes trying to steady my breath. The neighbor across the street, Mr. Thompson, watched me from his porch like he knew something I didn't. I waved politely. He nodded back slow and pitying like I was a woman in mourning and just didn't know it yet. There wasn't a single text or voicemail from anyone inside the house. Not a welcome home. Not a sorry, we meant to call. Just that one careless line from my sister. You're early. After a few more minutes of silence, I stood up and wheeled my suitcase toward my car. I'd barely turned the key in the ignition when my phone buzzed. Harper. The message was a screenshot from her TikTok stream. Me frozen in the background, suitcase in hand, looking like a stranger in my own home. The caption. When your sister shows up uninvited, but you already claimed the room. #Soranatsuri. I stared at it for a long second and then put my phone face down on the passenger seat. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel and tried to remember if I'd ever done something to deserve this kind of malice. When I finally pulled out of the driveway, I didn't know where I was headed. There wasn't a hotel booked. I'd expected to sleep in my own bed, maybe cook breakfast for the family, maybe even tell them what it was like watching Grandma die slowly day after day, her hand in mine. But that bed didn't exist anymore. Neither did the version of family I thought I was returning to. I ended up at a budget motel just off the highway. A woman behind a plexiglass shield gave me a room key and offered a vending machine map in case I got hungry. Her tone was kind, but detached, like she'd seen women like me before, running from something invisible. Inside the room, I dropped my suitcase and collapsed onto the edge of the bed. The blanket was coarse, the air stale with cleaning spray and something else. Loneliness, maybe. I stared at the ceiling and counted the tiny cracks in the plaster. How long had they been planning this? It wasn't just the room. It was the audacity of pretending I'd never existed in it. No photos, no books, no reminders. And then the TikTok. That wasn't just casual cruelty. That was performance. For likes. For clout. For a curated life that didn't have room for the sister who used to braid her hair and cover for her when she snuck out. I showered with the door locked even though I was alone. Old habit. I dressed in the same clothes I'd worn for the drive. Then I opened my laptop, hoping to distract myself with emails from work. But there was nothing urgent. Just a couple of newsletters and a calendar reminder about an alumni panel I was supposed to speak on next month. Suddenly, it all felt so far away, like a life that belonged to someone else. I ordered takeout and scrolled through Harper's account. She'd posted 6 new videos in the last 2 weeks, each more polished than the last. Filters, fake laughter, sponsored links to makeup brands, and detox teas. Her bedroom, my old bedroom, was her stage now. A ring light reflected in every corner of her eyes. In one clip, she said, "This room is where I finally feel like myself. No more shadows, no more walking on eggshells. I deserve to shine." Thousands of likes. Dozens of comments calling her a queen and so real. One said, "Big sister energy finally winning." I almost laughed. If only they knew. After dinner, I called my friend Nora, someone who'd always told me to trust my gut. She didn't pick up. I left a message I immediately regretted. Too vague, too emotional. Then I turned off the lamp and lay down in the dark. I didn't cry. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was something harder to name but easier to carry. A realization that no matter how much you give, some people only love you in proximity to their own spotlight. And when you become inconvenient, they push you into the dark. I stood in the hallway for a moment, watching from a distance, as if I had wandered into someone else's home. The glow of candles flickered against the white tablecloth. Glasses clinked gently, and laughter floated up, sharp, rehearsed. My name wasn't called. No one looked up. The table was dressed like a magazine cover, rustic, chic, polished, intentional. Four seats were set with precision, napkins folded into neat triangles. But the fourth wasn't mine. It was just an extra spot, an accessory to their image. Harper sat at the far end, draped in soft curls and confidence, wearing a dress I vaguely remembered buying her last Christmas. Her phone sat propped up in a mini tripod, quietly recording. "You're here," Mom said, only halfway turning her head. "Sit, sit. We weren't sure you'd be down for dinner." Her tone suggested my presence was optional, like showing up at a PTA meeting no one really expected me to attend. She gestured to the end of the table near the kitchen door where there was no plate, no glass, no acknowledgement. "I'll get you something," she added, already standing up. I pulled out a spare chair that creaked under the movement, the legs scraping tile. Dad didn't even glance at me. He was too busy pouring wine for everyone else. When Mom returned, she placed a mismatched plate in front of me. Plain, slightly chipped, not the ceramic set they were all using. "Sorry," she said absently. "I didn't realize we were out of the good ones." That wasn't true. There were 3 more in the cabinet. I just washed them last Thanksgiving. "So," Mom began, her voice shifting to a bright performative tone. "Harper's following count just hit 90,000. Can you believe it? And there's a producer who reached out about casting her for a local lifestyle segment. She might be on TV soon." "Just a small thing," Harper giggled, brushing her hair behind her ear. "But it's a step. People are finally starting to see what I bring to the table." Dad raised his glass. "She's got charisma and she's consistent. That's the trick, consistency." My fork hovered over the plate. No one had asked how my drive went. No one asked about Grandma. Not a single question about Florida, the hospice visits, or the nights I slept in a chair beside a woman who no longer recognized her own name. Harper pulled out her phone. "We should get a few clips tonight while everyone's still at the table. Family dinner content does really well." Then she glanced at me, hesitant, calculating. "You're okay being in it, right?" Before I could answer, Mom chimed in. "Oh, and we were thinking a photo shoot this weekend, for branding, something cozy and unified. I found this place that does fall aesthetics even in spring. Think golden light, matching sweaters, us as a strong family unit." I blinked. "A family shoot?" "Yes, just the 4 of us." My gaze narrowed. Of course, you'll be in it, sweetheart." Mom smiled almost too brightly. "We just want it to reflect togetherness. Real family love. People love authenticity." I stared at her. The woman who hadn't sent me a birthday card in 2 years now wanted me to pose in cable knit joy for social media clout. I wasn't a daughter. I was a backdrop. My appetite vanished, but I forced down a bite. Dry chicken, oversalted green beans. They chatted over me, around me, through me. I might as well have been a ghost. "Maybe wear something with earth tones," Harper suggested. Something softer. "You always dress so formal." I didn't respond. My thoughts drifted back to a night in Florida. Grandma trying to remember a song she used to hum while cooking. She kept getting the melody wrong, and I'd corrected her gently until she smiled and said, "Who needs to be perfect when you're already loved?" No one in this room remembered what that meant. "I have work," I said suddenly, standing up, chair legs screeching again. "Tomorrow's early." Harper looked annoyed. "Just one clip, 5 seconds." I didn't answer. Mom tried again. "You sure? We want people to see how close we are. That's what connects." "That's not what connection looks like," I said, pushing the plate away. I walked toward the hallway, pausing at the entryway where the light from the dining room didn't quite reach. My voice was steady, but something inside me had already cracked open. "You're not trying to share family. You're trying to sell it." Their silence followed me up the stairs. I brought the music box inside, still dripping. The gold trim had worn off over the years, but I remembered how it once glimmered when Grandma would open it by the window, humming softly as the tiny ballerina spun on one leg. Now it was chipped, waterlogged, and silent. I set it on the nightstand, if I could still call it mine, and peeled open the rest of the bag. Damp letters, smeared ink, brittle old envelopes. Some were addressed to me. Others were notes I'd written Grandma during middle school, full of doodles and glittery stickers. Things she'd saved, Things I hadn't even remembered until now. They had thrown it all away like it meant nothing. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, listening to the faint patter of rain tapping against the window. Then I reached for my phone, not to call anyone, but to scroll back. Months and months of messages, all from me. Grandma had a rough night. She's confused again. She asked for you today. I think she thinks it's 1992. I need to talk, please. Seen. Ignored. They had watched the updates come in and decided to stay silent. Not one check-in. Not even when she stopped eating. Not when I told them we were signing hospice papers. Not when I sat in a folding chair for 4 days straight watching a woman I loved forget how to swallow. The silence wasn't accidental. It was chosen. I heard the side gate creak and glanced through the blinds. Mrs. Evelyn Morse, our neighbor of 2 decades, was walking her spaniel down the sidewalk. I stepped out with the bundle of wet letters still in my arms. She looked surprised. "Oh, sweetheart, I didn't realize you were back in town." I nodded, barely managing a smile. "Yeah, just got in." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Well, your mama said you were staying in Florida permanently. I thought maybe you'd gotten a job down there." I blinked. "She said that?" "Oh yes, months ago. Said you asked them to pack your things and move them to storage since you didn't plan on coming back." I swallowed hard. Did she say where the storage was? Evelyn looked confused. "Storage?" I assumed they already handled it. I nodded again, the lie curling inside me like a slow poison. They hadn't just erased me physically. They'd rewritten my part of the story, and no one questioned it. Back inside, I spread the letters across the mattress to dry. A few pages had held on to their shape. One with a drawing of a cat I'd made when I was 10. Another with Grandma's looping handwriting, saying, "Be patient with them, even when they aren't patient with you." The irony of that line stung. I wrapped the music box in a dry towel and placed it inside my suitcase. The suitcase I hadn't unpacked. The suitcase that now held the only things I cared about in that entire house. Everything else had either been claimed or discarded. It was strange how a home can feel smaller even when the walls haven't moved. How a person can become invisible in rooms they used to breathe in. Harper had my space. My parents had rewritten my absence into abandonment. And here I was holding on to the scraps they threw out, trying to feel like I still belonged. I texted Nora again. Just a quick update. No emotion this time. I didn't want pity. I wanted perspective. But she didn't reply. No one replied. The air in the room felt tighter. Maybe it was the rain outside. Or maybe it was the weight of realizing that the people I once trusted had made peace with a version of life where I didn't exist. I glanced at my phone again, stared at the photo on the lock screen. Grandma and me, arms around each other on her porch, sipping lemonade. Her eyes were bright, her hand resting on mine like she was afraid to let go. I reached for my journal. Not to write a poem or a memory, just a sentence, a reminder. They didn't just throw away my things. They buried what made me real. I drove without music, without GPS, just the low hum of tires over wet pavement and the pounding in my chest growing louder with every turn. The envelope had my name on it, the estate notice addressed to me, and somehow it had made its way into a trash bin by the garage, opened, read, forgotten, or maybe never intended to be shown to me at all. I parked outside the public library, needing somewhere neutral, somewhere that didn't reek of family perfume or false smiles. I'd been here before years ago, cramming for college exams, borrowing their quiet like a safe house. Now, I needed that silence again, but for different reasons. My phone was dying, so I found a seat near an outlet and plugged in. I connected to the Wi-Fi, opened my inbox, and tried to focus on something, anything other than the bile rising in my throat. There, at the top of the unread list, was an email from a law firm in Fort Lauderdale. Subject line, Estate Disbursement Notification, Beatrice Salas. I clicked it open with numb fingers. It was official. My grandmother's estate had been finalized. 2 properties sold, one in Miami Beach, another in Sarasota. Total proceeds $350,000. I was listed as the sole beneficiary to receive the full amount as her direct heir. The letter stated the notice had been sent by certified mail to my primary residence, the Carver House in Savannah, dated 6 months ago. The digital attachment showed a signed receipt, my father's name, his signature. He had signed for it and said nothing. I closed the laptop slowly, as if slamming it would break more than the screen. My throat tightened. I didn't know if I wanted to scream or go completely still. Instead, I grabbed my phone and stepped outside. The sky above was heavy, bruised with clouds. The wind wet with the promise of a storm. I needed air. I didn't know what I needed. Walking past the library's columns, I opened Instagram out of muscle memory. I shouldn't have. I knew better. Harper's story was the first to pop up. Loud music, glitter filter, her voice chirping with pride. Finally got her. Meet Harp Mobile 2.0 exclamation mark. We earned this one, baby. I tapped through. A sleek new Toyota SUV. Red ribbons still half-draped across the hood. A pink plastic flute filled with sparkling wine. A banner in the background. Happy birthday, Harper. I checked the post date 2 weeks after the funds were released. I laughed just once, the kind that doesn't come from humor, but from something far more bitter. Back at the house, I didn't knock. I walked in like a woman ready to reclaim the breath that had been taken from her. No one was in the living room. The television murmured something about weekend weather. I followed the faint clinking of a spoon to the kitchen. My mother was humming softly, stirring something in a saucepan. The keys were sitting on the counter. Brand new black fob with a pink keychain that read Heart Mobile in silver script. It was laying right next to the empty coffee mug I used to take to my internship every morning. She looked up. "Oh, didn't hear you come in." I didn't reply, just walked past her into what used to be the pantry. It still smelled faintly like cinnamon and shallots, like her cooking from my childhood. Funny how smells last longer than loyalty. "Are you hungry? There's leftover risotto," she offered, still playing domestic, still pretending the last 24 hours hadn't burned everything down. "No," I said quietly, then turned and left. Upstairs, I sat on the bed, my suitcase still half-zipped, clothes still folded inside like I'd only planned to stay the night. I pulled out my journal and wrote one line. They took my name off the mailbox and the check. Then I opened my phone, selected all voicemails from my parents, and hit delete. Photos gone. Birthday texts from years past deleted. If silence was their weapon, then mine would be strategy. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. Let them enjoy their car, their party, their TikToks and talk shows. Let them think they'd won. But I had the truth, and soon I'd have the rest. She didn't answer me. Not with words. Just stood there in the middle of the kitchen, hand frozen around the handle of the fridge, like the truth might melt if she moved too quickly. I turned away without another glance and spent the night in silence, lying awake in what used to be my room, the ceiling fan groaning overhead. I didn't cry, I planned. By morning, the heat had arrived early. The sky outside looked swollen, thick with humidity. Inside the house, the air was stiffer, like everyone could sense something was coming but pretended not to. I came downstairs fully dressed, papers in hand. Ready. They were at the dining table, coffee mugs in front of them, the Sunday crossword already halfway filled. Mom was humming again. Same old tune from my childhood. A fake comfort. My father didn't even look up from his phone. That was fine. I walked to the head of the table and laid down the manila folder like it weighed more than it should have. I know. 2 words and the room shifted. Dad's phone slipped slightly in his hand. Mom's humming stopped. A tick of the clock cut through the quiet. She opened her mouth first. "No, what?" I didn't answer. I just opened the folder and spread the documents out in front of them. A certified copy of the estate settlement. My grandmother's name printed across the top. My name listed as sole beneficiary. A signature below. My father's. "It was mailed here," I said. "Certified. You signed for it." My father stared at the paper like it might rewrite itself if he waited long enough. My mother's face twitched, then reset, composure snapping back like muscle memory. "We were going to tell you," she said, placing her hand over the letter. I pulled the paper away before her fingers could graze it. "You didn't lose it. You hid it." She sighed, dramatic. "Lila, don't be so harsh. You were gone. You were busy with Grandma. We didn't want to overwhelm you." "You mean burden me?" I asked, voice still even. "Because you had no problem letting me watch her die alone." Dad finally stood. "Let's not do this here." "Where then?" "The car lot, or maybe next to the new SUV you bought her with money that wasn't yours." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "No, what's not fair is spending 8 months in a hospice wing while you sign checks in my name." Mom's smile twisted like she couldn't decide if she was embarrassed or irritated. "You always take things so personally." I laughed just once, a bitter exhale. It was personal. It had my name on it. Then, without looking at them, I took the final sheet from the folder, the delivery record from the law firm. It showed the timeline when it arrived, when he signed. 2 weeks before they told the neighbors I decided to stay in Florida. 3 weeks before they started clearing out my room. 1 month before Harper's birthday bash with champagne flutes and hashtags. Dad sat down again, slower this time. Mom just leaned against the counter, arms crossed. She never told us how much it was, she muttered. Your grandmother, she never said anything directly. She trusted you, I said. And you trusted the silence more than me. There was a pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. Beatrice meant well, but she didn't understand how things work today. She was stuck in old ways. Tradition, guilt, obligation, always making you feel like you owed her. That's not love, Lila. That's control. I stared at her, not blinking. She wasn't controlling. She was present. There's a difference. You deserved a life, baby, she said, a little softer now. One that didn't revolve around a dying woman in a 2-bedroom ranch house. I took a breath, steady, measured. You didn't protect me. You erased me. They said nothing. No denial, no apology. I closed the folder, tucked it back under my arm, and walked toward the front door. Where are you going? Dad called. I paused, hand on the doorknob. The next time you see my name on a legal document, I said without turning around. Don't touch it. I stepped out into the thick, humid air. The wind was rising now, trees beginning to bend. Let them sit with it. Let the storm come. I saw them the moment I stepped through the side doors of the Civic Hall. They were impossible to miss. Mom in a floral blouse 3 shades too loud. Dad in his pressed navy blazer and Harper twirling her hair near the photo backdrop like it was prom night. She held her phone high, pouting into the camera with a caption that I could already imagine. Proud family moment, #pride. They hadn't RSVP'd. They weren't on the guest list, but they came anyway, uninvited, unashamed, and dressed for a spotlight that didn't belong to them. I kept walking, slow and even, nodding to Mr. Ramsey from the council, and hugging Miss Dolores, one of the women I'd helped enroll in the elderly nutrition program. I smiled and posed when the press snapped photos. But my mind buzzed. I sat near the stage with my mentor, Ellen, a retired social worker who'd fought for fair housing back when I was still in braces. She leaned in and whispered, "You're glowing today, honey. This is your moment." I nodded, grateful for her steadiness. Then my phone vibrated. A text. "Mrs. Tate, my mom's old coworker from the library. Just a heads up. Your parents are here." Silas said something about saying a few words. "Thought you should know." My jaw tensed. Not surprised, just insulted. I turned off the screen and slid the phone into my bag. I took a breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. A trick Grandma used to use when the world felt too loud. The sky outside was cloudless, blue, and soft. But inside, I was already weathering the storm. When my name was announced, the applause felt unreal, like the sound was happening in another room. I stepped onto the stage, heels clicking across the hardwood floor, heart thumping, but head high. The plaque they handed me shimmered under the spotlight. Community Excellence in Service and Outreach. It wasn't just an award. It was proof that I hadn't disappeared, that I'd built something from nothing, that I mattered. The applause quieted and I approached the mic. I didn't look at them. I want to thank the city of Savannah and the beautiful people in our elder community who remind me every day what it means to live with dignity. I'm standing here today because of one woman in particular, my grandmother Beatrice. She taught me that silence can be powerful, but action is louder. That love isn't always flashy, but it is faithful, and that showing up consistently is its own kind of revolution. A few gasps, some claps, I continued. She didn't live long enough to see this, but I carry her with me in the work, in the truth, and in the promise I made to her before she passed, to keep going, even when others tried to erase the path beneath me. I didn't mention my parents. I didn't have to. I stepped back as the audience rose, clapping again, louder this time. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted my name. A staff member guided me toward the front for a group photo. And that's when I saw them approaching. My mother adjusted her blouse. My father straightened his collar. Harper reached for her lip gloss, checking her reflection in her phone screen. They weren't smiling for me. They were smiling for the idea of being connected to something that earned applause. A young woman with a clipboard approached, holding a mic. "Would you like to invite your family to join you for a few photos?" Before she could wave them forward, I touched her arm gently. "They're not with me," I said. Her eyes widened. "Oh, okay." I stepped aside, letting the lights flash without them, letting the room see finally who was really standing there and who wasn't. As I walked off stage, Harper called after me in a hiss meant to sound sweet. "Come on, Lila. Don't be dramatic." I didn't turn around. This wasn't drama. This was clarity. I shut the door behind me that evening and leaned against it, letting the echo of the outside world fall away. My heels clicked across the hardwood as I made my way to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and turned off my phone just for an hour, just to breathe. But peace has never lasted long in this story. The next morning, my inbox was waiting for me, bloated with everything from congratulatory emails to news alerts. I scanned through, deleting most until I saw her name. From Harper Carver, subject, "This isn't what I wanted." I hesitated, then opened it. It wasn't rage. It wasn't guilt exactly. It was something worse. A long string of justifications wrapped in soft language. She called it a reflection. I didn't mean for things to get this far. I just wanted to matter, too. "They always talked about you like you were the savior and I was just background noise. You left and it felt like I finally had space to breathe. I know it wasn't fair, but everything felt easier without you around." At the bottom of the message, there was an old photo attachment. Us at the park, maybe 9 and 13, arms looped around each other's shoulders, cheeks sticky with popsicle juice. In the caption, "Back when things were simple." I stared at it for a minute, too, then hit delete. By lunchtime, the real storm rolled in. Rain slapped against the windows of my apartment as I scrolled through my notifications. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. She'd posted a video, her voice layered over a moody instrumental track. Makeup slightly smudged for effect. "Some families just break you and you still love them anyway." Her eyes blinked wide and glossy. Her voice cracked. I knew it was calculated. I also knew it would work. The comments piled up. "You're so brave for speaking up. Blood isn't always thicker. Who does your sister think she is anyway?" A few were even worse. "That award was clearly bought. She's always been fake. Look at her eyes. No warmth. This is why families fall apart. Selfish people like her." They didn't tag me directly, but people I didn't know were tagging my organization, my work email, my community accounts. Some were strangers, others sock puppets, fake profiles, probably some created in her bedroom, lit by the same ring light that used to sit in mine. The board reached out, polite but pointed. Given the media circulation, we advise staying above the noise. No direct responses, please. Translation: be the bigger person again. But being the bigger person in a family like mine meant being the one they could step on. I closed the app, my hands trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of restraint. I opened my voicemail instead, not expecting anything new, just needing to hear something that wasn't twisted. There it was, a message I'd saved months ago. Harper's voice late at night, a little slurred. She sounded like she was crying. "You were always the one they loved out loud." I was just trying to be seen, too. "I didn't think they'd go that far, Lila. I didn't think they'd cut you out completely. I just wanted a chance." I remembered the night that came in. I had almost replied. Almost. But almost doesn't rebuild trust. I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring out the window. Thunder cracked in the distance. The city lights blinked through the storm as if deciding whether to keep glowing or give in to the dark. She had the audience now, but I had the truth and I wasn't done yet. The lights on set were warm, almost too bright for the early afternoon, but I welcomed the heat. It grounded me. I sat in the tall chair opposite the host of Voices of Savannah. Mic clipped to my lapel, fingers calmly laced together in my lap. My palms weren't sweating this time. The backdrop behind me read, "Community rising, honoring service, sharing stories." The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd briefed me beforehand. 5 questions, 15 minutes. Stream going live to 3 local networks with replays lined up across regional channels. Harmless enough, civil, encouraging, but I wasn't here to be harmless. When the host smiled and welcomed me as a beacon of strength in the heart of Savannah, I smiled back, but I didn't melt. I'd learned the hard way that praise without clarity was just performance. We eased into the segment. Questions about the nonprofit, my work in elder advocacy, new projects involving housing security for single mothers and veterans. I spoke about dignity, about how listening was often the first act of love. I told them about a woman named Miss Esther who'd been evicted over a $42 late fee, and how we helped her win her case and her peace back. And then came the final question, the one I knew was coming. The host tilted his head with that signature TV sincerity and asked, "So, do you still talk to your family?" Pause, not long but intentional. I looked right into the camera. Not at him, not at the crew, but at every viewer who had ever been gaslit by the people who claimed to love them. "No," I said, "because family isn't about biology. It's about choice. And some people only love you when they control your silence." That sentence sat in the studio like a held breath. Even the camera operator blinked. I didn't say it loudly, but the truth never had to shout. By the time I got home, my phone had exploded. Clips were already circulating online. Someone had stitched the quote onto a photo of me receiving the award paired with the text, "Some wounds look like smiles." It went viral in less than 2 hours. I didn't open the messages. Instead, I brewed chamomile tea, curled onto my couch, and let the sunlight pour through my window. That night, I dreamed of Grandma again. We were sitting on her old porch swing in Florida. She was wearing her pink muumuu with the embroidered sleeves, her gray braid coiled over one shoulder. She didn't say much, just reached over, squeezed my hand, and said, "You don't owe them love. You owe yourself peace." I woke up before sunrise with her voice still in my chest. I let it echo through me, not like a demand, more like a song I used to know by heart, and was finally remembering. Later that morning, a knock at my door broke the stillness. It was the mail carrier holding a flat brown envelope marked certified. The handwriting was unmistakable, my father's. But the return address wasn't theirs anymore. They'd moved again. I signed without a word, took the envelope, and opened it at the kitchen counter. Inside, a notarized letter formally notifying me that I had been removed from all remaining family trusts, mailing lists, and estate documents. Their final response, their last word. I folded the paper and placed it beside my community award plaque. No rage, no tears, just quiet. Then I whispered, not to them but to myself, "And now we're even." The plaque outside caught the morning light just right. Gold on walnut with lettering clean and quiet. Beneath the logo it read the Beatrice House. "In loving memory of Beatrice Salas, who taught me how to stay." I stood beneath it as we prepared for the open house, wearing the soft cotton blouse Grandma once bought me from a flea market in Miami. The scent of fresh magnolia drifted in through the open windows. Our garden, 2 rows of raised beds and a scattering of wildflowers, had started blooming. No ribbon-cutting ceremony, no podium, just folding chairs on the lawn, homemade lemon bars, and the people who made it possible. Some clients had walked here from the retirement complex down the street. Others came by shuttle, volunteers helping them out one step at a time. Every smile felt like a stitch sewn into something I didn't even know had been torn. We didn't speak of blood here. We spoke of bonds, of baked cookies, shared tea, housing applications, Medicare forms, community chess matches, and storytelling circles. When the volunteers handed out photo cards of our mission and its values, they included a printed quote on the back. "Family isn't who raised you, it's who sees you." I didn't pick that quote. One of the interns did, but I let it stay. Later that afternoon, I wandered back into my office, passing by the framed photo of Grandma. Her arms wrapped around me on the beach the summer I turned 13. The print had faded, but her gaze hadn't. It still carried that look. Stern love, zero tolerance for lies, and just enough softness to let you exhale. I sat down, opened my laptop, and instinctively checked the blocked messages folder. I hadn't looked in weeks. Harper's name was everywhere. A cascade of messages, all left unread. A few apologies, mostly vague. Some TikToks she had tagged me in, all deleted now. One photo of our old bedroom, now stripped clean and captioned, "Wish you'd come home." I didn't reply. 2 voicemails from my father lingered near the bottom. I clicked one, a long silence. Then his voice rasped and worn. "We messed up. Your mother? She can't stop crying. I just thought you'd want to know." I didn't. I closed the window. Then I selected everything. Delete all. No ceremony. No hesitation. I moved to the window, watching as a young volunteer helped Miss Naomi to her seat by the roses. The sunlight bounced off the porch railings, warm and forgiving. Justice hadn't arrived in sirens or lawsuits. Came quietly, like spring after a long winter. The IRS had flagged inconsistencies on Dad's filings. I wasn't the one who reported him, but I wasn't surprised either. Word had gotten around that his accounts were under audit. His LinkedIn disappeared weeks ago. Mom's social club canceled its spring fundraiser. Unforeseen family challenges they'd posted. Harper lost 2 of her sponsorship deals when questions arose about her donation drives. She blamed jealous haters, but eventually she stopped posting altogether. No mugshot, no breaking news, just silence. Consequences in the slow language of isolation. And still, I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't want revenge, just distance and peace. That evening, one of the teens from our youth program wandered into the kitchen to help clean up. She was about 16, freckles across her nose, quiet but quick. She held up a photo of me and Grandma from one of our storytelling nights. "So, do you have family?" she asked, not with pity, just curiosity. I looked at her, at the way she stood with one hand on her hip, chin lifted, unapologetically herself. "Not the kind that raised me," I said. "The kind I chose." We lit candles that night, not for ceremony, just because it felt right. The front porch glowed soft gold. Laughter rolled down the hallway from the game room where Mr. Amos was trying to teach dominoes to 3 teenagers who had clearly never played before. Before I locked up for the night, I paused in front of Grandma's portrait. I pressed 2 fingers to the glass. "You were right," I whispered. "I didn't have to go back. I just had to go forward. Some roots survive even the coldest winters. I didn't just grow again. I bloomed somewhere new. Sometimes family isn't where you came from. It's where you finally feel safe." Lila didn't choose silence. She chose truth. And in doing so, she reminded us all that healing doesn't always mean returning. It can also mean beginning again. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you love to find yourself again? If the story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. There are more real, raw, and powerful stories just waiting to be told. See you in the next chapter.